Yumgachilamje.
Dobry dzień.
Ciao hao!
Good day, everyone.
We are here to present our topic about global interstate system.
Global Interstate System. Global Interstate System is the whole system of human interactions. The modern world system is structured politically as an interstate system, a system of competing and allying states. Political scientists commonly call this the international system, and it is the main focus of the field international relations. President Franklin Roosevelt coined the name United Nations that was in the Declaration of United Nations on January 1, 1942. UN means allies to fight against the Axis powers in the Second World War II. Trade agreements are when two or more nations agree on the term of trade between them. They determine the tariffs and duties that countries impose on imports and exports. All trade agreements affect international trade. After we know the definition of trade agreement, there are three aspects of trade agreement: unilateral, bilateral, and multilateral. When we say unilateral occurs when a country imposes trade restrictions and no other country reciprocates. A country can also unilaterally loosen trade restrictions, but that rarely happens. Bilateral. When we say bilateral, it is between two countries. Both countries agree to loosen trade restrictions to expand business opportunities between them. They lower tariffs and confer preferred trade status with each other. And lastly, multilateral. Multilateral are the most difficult to negotiate. These are among three countries or more. The greater the number of participants, the more difficult the negotiations are. They are also more complex than bilateral agreements. Each country has its own needs and requests. There are two aspects of trade. Number one is import. Import are goods and services produced in a foreign country and brought by domestic residents. That includes anything shipped into the country even if it's by the foreign subsidiary of domestic firm. The consumer is inside the country's boundaries and the provider is outside, then the good or service is unknown. Number two, export. Export are goods and services that are made in a country and sold outside its borders. That includes anything shipped from a domestic company to its foreign affiliate or branch.
Good day, everyone. I'm Kyril May Cruz Rijoto from Group 5. I'm here to present of importance of global interstate system. Global interstate system is important because it's attempt to explain the interaction of states in the global interstate system. It will sustain the economy and support interaction competitiveness.
Global interstate system is an organized institution that governs international relations for mutual benefit, to cooperated government signatory and not to make a separate armistice or peace with enemies. And now let's move on to the purpose of global interstate system. Global interstate system is a whole system of human interaction. So the main purpose of global interstate system is to contribute peace and security by promoting international collaboration through educational, scientific, and cultural reforms in order to increase universal respect for justice, the rule of law, and human rights, along with fundamental freedom.
Good day, everyone. My name is Marie Citron Rivera from BSCS 1E. Our topic is difference and similarities between nation and state. Difference of state. Number 1 is legal political. The legal political dimension includes conditions such as a defense, military policy, foreign policy, political stability, political organization, flexibility of law, the role of government, labor organization, local needs, industry standards, political ideology, political stability, relevant legal rules for foreign. Number 2 is inhabited by homogeneous group of people. Homogeneous means alike. Heterogeneous means unlike or distinct from one another. A homogeneous population has little variation. You could refer to a specific trait such as hair, color, or you could refer to genetic diversity. For example, a population of humans that has inhabited in island for thousands of years with little migration to or from the islands is likely relatively homogeneous or alike in their traits. Number 3 is political unit. Political unit means a unit with political responsibilities. More precisely, it refers to politically organized body of people under the single government. Independent countries are the highest form of political units in the world. An independent country must be a defined geographical scope theory. Internally, independent political entities are also known as quasi-independent political entities. They are independent in the matter of internal affairs, while the under protection of their independent political entities in the matter of defense and foreign affairs. Number 4 is social. If you are social, you like to be around people. The word social comes from the Latin meaning friend. When you're being social, you're everyone's friend. Go to a social or mixer and you might make a lot of new friends. Stand in the corner, putting however, and you're being antisocial. Number 5 is political. A state is an organized political community acting under a government. States are considered to be subject to external sovereignty or hegemony if their ultimate sovereignty lies in another state. A federate state is a theoretical constitutional community that forms part of federation. Number 6 is local, pertaining to a characterized by place or position in space, or spatial, pertaining to characterized of restricted to a particular place or particular places. A local custom pertaining to a city, town, or a small district rather than an entire state or country. Local transportation. 7 is regulate business within the state. United States Constitution provides that the Congress should have the power to regulate interstate and foreign commerce. The plain meaning of this language might indicate a limited power to regulate commercial trade between persons in one state and persons outside of the state. The similarities of nation and state. Number 1 is borrow money. A loan is a form of debt incurred by an individual or other entity. The lender usually a corporation, financial institution, or government advance a sum of money to the borrower. In turn, the borrower agrees to a certain set of terms including any finance charges, interest, repayment date, and other conditions. Number 2 is established courts. They resolve disputes between people, companies, and units of government. Often, courts are called on the uphold limitation on the government. They protect against abuses by all branches of government. They protect minorities of all types from the majority and protect the rights of people who can't protect themselves. Number 3 is provide for the public welfare. Providing for the welfare of the general public is a basic goal of government. The preamble to the U.S. Constitution cites promotion of the general welfare as a primary reason for the creation of the Constitution. Rather, it merely allows Congress to spend federal money for the general welfare. That's all, and thank you.
State, nation, and nation-state. Their different definition and differences. To continue, we will now be dealing with the differences of state, nation, and nation-state. First is let me define to you a nation by a Venn diagram on how it may differ with the state. As what we can see in the diagram presented, nation is first described as ethnic-cultural because it is an ethnical and cultural togetherness, unlike the state, which is legally and politically togetherness. The second one is that nation is inhabited by heterogeneous group of people. It is a total opposite of the state with the homogeneous kind of people inhabiting. Third is that nation is cultural phenomenon because it is a group of people who see themselves as a cohesive and coherent unit based on shared cultural or historical criteria. Is that nation is a cultural phenomenon because it is a group of people who see themselves as a cohesive and coherent unit based on shared cultural or historical criteria. The next one is the emotional and cultural bond. Nation is a united unit of population which is full of emotional, spiritual, and sociological bonds. It is unlike the state, that is a political unit. Next, from the presented diagram is that a nation establishes foreign policy and it sets standards, weights, and measures. It is a direct reflection of a country's tradition, values, and overall nation policies. Additional differences of them is that a nation is more stable than state because when sovereignty ends, the state dies, but not the nation. A nation can survive even without sovereignty. Despite a lot of differences, they also have some numerous similarities, and some of them is both have the ability and both were capable of borrowing money within and outside with other states and nations. Another similarities of them is that both the nation and state have established courts and both promotes public and social welfare. Let me move on to another one, which is the nation state. What is nation state? It may be combination of both characteristics and capabilities of a nation and state. It is the idea of homogeneous nation governed by its own sovereign state, where each state contains one nation. Also, nation-state is territorially bounded sovereign polity, like the state that is ruled in the name of community of citizens who identify themselves as a nation.
Neoliberalism and economic sovereignty, property contracts, and foreign investments relations. Nicolas M. Perot. The law constitutes our societies in many ways. Broadly speaking, it articulates core purpose, including material purpose, and defines its means to achieve this purpose. Neoliberal legality can be understood as the laws that articulate the purpose of wealth maximization and internal social order, and more importantly, that provide only certain means to achieve these goals. These means are legal techniques based on the bilateralization of relation and macroeconomic rationality, two core disciplines of a neoliberal governmentality. Given that the idea of governmentality is tightly related to control and use of resources, any legal account of neoliberal governmentality also need to consider the particular legal techniques that actors use to control resources. Thus, object to explore the proprietary and contractual techniques
that serve to allocate control over resources in the context of neoliberal legality using foreign investment relation as a case study. Distinction between private and public laws is a persistent in the study of the law as it indicates to capture the interconnectedness of the legal order. One of these basic interconnection is between private property and sovereignty. As Cohen has shown, stronger private property right means less sovereignty and vice versa. The contribution of legal realism in 1920s and 1930s was not only to show this correlation, but also to suggest that the relationship between private and public authority can be adjusted by regulation, paving the way for state intervention in economy during the post-war period. The concrete legal basis for a larger public role in the control and use of resources range from grand theories such as the social function of property to the adjustment of private institutions like contracts to the needs of the administration. This kind of intervention, as Foucault suggests in his work, was incompatible with the neoliberal order that emerged during the 1970s, in which state appeared incapable of carrying out large planning or coordination function. This premise had important implications for the legal techniques to control and use resources. It was necessary not only to allocate resources to private actors. In fact, most industrial resources remained in private hands in the post-war period, but also to ensure that future state activity will be function to the individual coordination of economic activities. In the neoliberal economic ideal, this coordination is not simply a question of increasing corporate ownership to the detriment of state sovereignty, but of facilitating the coordination of an endless number of economic actors in this context. The track became the preeminent legal technique or neoliberal and neo-institutional economists and hierarchies gradually dissolved in large chains of contractual relations, of which global value chains are the paradigmatic example.
Good day to all of you. I am here and I am Mary Sophia. So for discussing this topic is all about global interstate system. What does it mean by global interstate system? So let's try to analyze the political globalization. So in discussing global interstate system, we have to discuss the political globalization. What does it mean about political globalization? Political globalization is the amount of political cooperation there between countries. So, meaning to say, this is the test, or this is how countries or states or even nations cooperate with each other for a common good, or how could they communicate for the economy? How could they communicate for their socialization? That's political globalization. It means cooperation. So there are 4 key attributes for world politics. To better understand the global interstate system, we have to affirm on these 4 key attributes in the world politics. First is that there are states that are independent from each other. Take note of it. They are independent with each other, since these states are very unique, and these states can stand on its own. They have unique characteristics, like these states can stand because of their stable economy. The other states can stand because
they have these raw resources which can be manipulated by strong characteristics. Those are independent from each other. No one can hamper their independence because they can stand on its own. Next attribute is that these states interact with one another through diplomacy, the friendship like any other things like as human beings call, or we interact with each other and we call ourselves as a friends. However, in the world politics and thus in the global interstate system, in that system alone, we could say that their friendship is called diplomacy. They interact in a diplomatic way. They don't get engaged with wars easily. However, they interact through a diplomatic way. These are well-versed, responsible of their own actions. That's diplomacy.
Political organization. International organization exists to facilitate this interaction. It exists as a part of the structure of globalization. Also, the global interstate system is also part of the structure of globalization. Here in the global interstate system, they already have the diplomacy and who facilitate the diplomatic relations among these state or these countries, the facilitator, the mediator, and the negotiator. Of this one are international organization. It is rarely become the bridge of one state to another state. That is their interaction. This international organization also take lives on their own aside being the bridge. Being the facilitator, they thinking they have their own lives, they have their own character, they have their own entity, they can stand on like any other state. It is like UN, it is national organization that can stand on its own. It's like NATO or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization who facilitate North American countries under treaties and agreement like their military agreement.
One of the positive impacts of globalization on the economy is sharing labor expertise. Employment opportunities are created due to globalization, especially in exporting, manufacturing, and service industry. The impact of national security. This is due to the fact that it could affect the political and economic condition within state. Benefits of trade. Free trade due to economic globalization occurs when there are no artificial barriers placed by government. Sharing transfer technology. Globalization enables the sharing transfer of technology, encourages innovative production methods, and promotes efficient marketing and distribution methods. More efficient markets. Improve the way of producing a good or service by outsourcing certain process or buying from overseas suppliers that offer discount. Resolve borderless issues. Globalization allows companies to find lower cost ways to produce their products. It also increases global competition, which drives prices down and creates a larger variety of choice for consumers. Lowered costs help people in both developing and already developed countries live better on less money.
What are the effects of globalization on government? According to the disciplining hypothesis, globalization restrained governments by inducing increased budgetary pressure. As a consequence, governments shift their expenditure in favor of transfer and subsidies and away from capital expenditure, meaning, as a result, people sales increased even more because it was also in the implementation of the high budget. These three have been the negative effect of globalization on government. The number one is bring out local and global conflicts, which can be compared to the situation of the Philippines and China due to the territorial dispute in the Scarborough Shoal. Number two is environmental problem, which is more problematic by the whole country due to improper disposal of waste that causes flooding and others, such as cutting down trees, burning, and so on, which have the effect of environmental degradation. Crime and terrorism, which is a big problem for the whole country due to the killing of those involved in drugs, especially in the country of Saudi Arabia, where the terrorist group also originated.
Internationalism and globalism. Although the two terms may appear to be similar, yet there exists conceptual difference between the two. Internationalism is when few or many countries agree to work together for the good of all. This has basically worked since World War I and stood out in World War II. The most prominent examples of internationalism now are the intergovernmental organizations or IGOs such as World Trade Organization, ASEAN, United Nations, European Union, African Union, and the World Bank. Globalism, on the other hand, is when one or two countries get together to take over the world with one leader, like what the dictator of Germany, Adolf Hitler, wished to accomplish during the World War II.
As we learn the global interstate system, we must know who are the ones that governs these organizations. Firstly is the United Nations, who's responsible for international law, security, and human rights. The United Nations was founded not only to save the succeeding generation in the scourge of war and reaffirm the faith in fundamental human rights, but also to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligation arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained. And then there's World Bank that helps country by financial supporting. It gives out loans to fight the poverty issues. And then lastly is the World Health Organizations play an essential role in the global governance of health and disease. In this pandemic, they are the ones who approves the vaccine fighting the COVID-19.